Welcome to our webinar, everybody. Today we are going to focus on S/4HANA Central Finance and Treasury, and how Treasury is a great way for you to get value out of your Central Finance and S/4HANA. Today we'll be talking with Kim Dowling, the head of the Bramisol Treasury practice, and we have two special guests here today. Karsten Hilker, who is part of the SAP Global Solution Management for S/4HANA and a resident expert on Central Finance. So thank you, Karsten, for joining. And Mike Lucente, who is a senior director and part of the SAP Finance North America COE. So Mike, thanks for joining us again. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping as people continue to join. Brief reminder that housekeeping items, the webinar is being recorded. So I encourage all of you, please share this webinar. Feel free to download it. It'll be up on our website probably in the next 24 to 48 hours. You can ask questions. Hop down here to the question tab, ask your questions, and we'll be glad to answer any of them. Think about, what we'll ask or answer is can I questions, as opposed to how do I, meaning if you ask us, can the application ABC do something? We will be glad to answer if it can, but sometimes the how do I questions tend to get a little bit more detailed. So we'll take those offline. Download previous webinars from our homepage. You can check it out over here. Go to the Bramisol webpage at bramisol.com. We have a resource center. You can click the resource center and download not just our previous webinars, but ebooks, white papers. We have a recent ebook that just came out on internal controls for financial reporting by John Scott on my team. For those of you who are media focused, we have a great new white paper that's out there, and podcasts on ASC or ASU 2019-02, which has to do with digital media companies. So check those out. I noticed we have a couple of quick comments here. Okay. I'm going to show my screen. Let's try that again. It was supposed to share. So can you see my screen now, Mike?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Sorry, everybody, for that. So I'll just remind you, you can see here is the screen, and then check out the previous webinars. You can contact us through bramisol.com. Go up here, click that. Check out Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and then our LinkedIn. So go ahead and chat with us there. Let me briefly kind of go over the agenda, and then we'll dive into the why are we here. Introduction, I'll take care of that. Overview and updates on Central Finance. Karsten will be handling that with commentary and input from the team. And then we'll dive into Treasury risk management solutions in Central Finance, and Kim and Mike will take us through that. So I borrowed a few slides from my friends here at SAP, and I want to talk a little bit about those. So why are we here? Well, what's going on in the world today? We know with the challenges of working from home, we expect a new set of paradigms in the space today. Customer behaviors and expectations are changing. We're seeing more and more people convert to products evolving into services. Check out our subscription economy webinar. We did a great one on that, but everybody's moving, and I think getting more aware of and into the subscription economy. You can order more and more things online, whether it's clothes, food, pet food. You can actually join a subscription economy and get a Porsche and rent, pay a fee every month and change your Porsche out every 4 to 6 months. So that's really interesting. Outreach to customers is going direct and becoming real time and in both directions. If you look at products like SAP Qualtrics, we talk about the experience economy and how important it is to get those directly. Everything is connected, whether it's mobility as a service. We have 3D printing, connected fleets, everything is connected. Think about the changes that are going to occur here as a result of 3D printing. You no longer have to go to a hardware store and order parts for your PC or something, you can probably in the future download and 3D print those, and 3D printing a lot more things. But just as importantly, security and risk are moving to the forefront of executive concerns, and we spent a lot of time talking about that in our risk, treasury and risk management, and we'll touch on some of those. Finance is at the center of enterprise transformation. Really, it is a mirror of the real world. And I love this video, or not video, this graphic that SAP came up with, really talking about how customer experience is being transformed, building loyalty, creating specific offerings, et cetera, managing your supply chain, and then facing that into finance transformation, and building digital trust and compliance in new models, right? But why, what does that have to do with what we're talking about today? Well, because central finance and treasury are at the heart of all of this, and they're great ways to, number one, demonstrate a quick ROI. We recently did a business case with a customer that we're starting a project with in which they looked at how being able to look at their cash position earlier in the day would help them save anywhere from 10 to 20 basis points on borrowing, or get 10 to 20 basis points in improvement on their overnight investments. And that may not sound a lot, but if you're investing $100 million every day, it turns into a lot of money, millions quickly. In the case of central finance, it's a great way to leverage your existing infrastructure and what you have in place. Central finance, and Carsten will talk about this, but think about, in today's economy and the way things are moving, what's a way that I can preserve or manage my current investment, but get all the benefits out of S/4HANA? And Carsten will talk a little bit about that. It gives us a way to do things in bite-sized pieces. Today, customers have given us feedback that what we're looking for is a way to get incremental value, and we'll show you how to do that. And you can get it started now. So with that in mind, I am going to turn it over, Carsten, to you to talk about S/4HANA for multi-ERP environments, and just let me know when I need to change slides.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sean. Can you just confirm that you can hear me?
I can, sir.
Wonderful, perfect. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present today as part of this webinar. A lot of changes indeed, even more right now. And with, I think, Central Finance, we have a very interesting solution in our solution portfolio that I'm going to talk about today. Many customers are adopting it, many of our SAP bread and butter customers. If you're one of them, good for you. If you're not yet, hopefully the session today will be informative enough for you to maybe jump on the bandwagon. All right, so please next slide. I'm going to start with just an overview of Central Finance. For those that have heard about it, maybe some news. For those that are new to Central Finance, setting the stage in that sense, right? So Central Finance at its core is a concept. It is the concept of a central instance, central system dedicated to finance. How do we do it? In the middle of the slide, you see like this S/4HANA system. We take a regular standard S/4HANA system. Nothing fancy, nothing special. It's a standard S/4HANA system that has the complete finance and logistics capabilities, but we're going to use it for finance only. We go to these source systems, those are the gray rectangular boxes on the left side, and we replicate the data in. The pulse thing in between, that green thing, means every single posting, financial posting that gets created in these source systems gets basically reposted, copied, brought over into that central system in real time on the lowest level, the transaction level, the line item level, which means at any time do you have now a kind of a digital twin, a mirror of all the financial postings in all of your systems in one system. These source systems, we don't care if they're SAP, ERP, or S/4HANA or S/4HANA Cloud. If they're non-SAP, if they're JD Edwards, Oracle, PeopleSoft, Microsoft Dynamics, Sage, we do not care. Could be a spreadsheet for all matters. What we do is we take the financial transactions created in those systems, bring it over. What makes this also interesting is obviously because we can connect to any existing system, it's perfect for a merger acquisition scenario. Once you have that up and running, or maybe in order to facilitate a merger acquisition, you can use Central Finance to bring in any new entity at any point of time, just kind of connect it in. And you can use the capabilities that a central S/4 system provides. As I said, these transactions come in real time whenever they are posted. So this could be a logistics transaction gets executed in the source system. Automatically a finance transaction gets created. Once that's created, it will be brought in. Or if finance transactions as part of finance operations or month-end scales get executed there, once they're posted, they're being brought over. When we bring it over, we map it. So obviously, we cannot expect that the customers have the same chart of accounts everywhere. So when we bring the data in, it's being mapped. So account 1, 2, 3 can be mapped to account 3, 4, 5. We can do this for all the key objects. The key objects in central finance typically are GL account, maybe profit center, customer, vendor, material, something like that. That means when we map it, we bring it over into the central system, into the option to have a common chart of account, a common view of your assets, your liabilities, especially this is a treasury topic today, what it means to them. In regards to material, same thing, you can unify your lines of business, your profit centers, and gives you that central, combined, aggregated view of your organization. It's a single source of truth in the sense that we have only one database, only one table that has all these financial tables in entries in there, and it's harmonized. So when you look at it, it's 500 million revenue. It's not 480, it's not 520. It's not because Mike has not made his posting in the source system yet, or has not submitted a spreadsheet, or the data has not been replicated yet to a reporting system. It is 500 million. As such, the system is non-disruptive, right? We don't change anything in these source systems. So it doesn't matter SAP or non-SAP, we don't have to do anything. Often the people don't even know we take data from them, right? We replicate it over. It's non-disruptive. It can be rolled out iteratively. We'll talk a little bit about this today. You can deploy the functionality, the finance functionality in there over time. Start maybe with financial reporting, add maybe payments to it, and then go on to treasury, or you start with treasury right away. That's really your call. Point is, it doesn't have to be a big bang, does not have to be a 3-year project, does not be 100, 150 people. You don't get any value until you go live project. It can be milestone based, quarterly, typically rolled out over time. It can be funded over time. McKinsey talks about this with the term of stage gating investment. So you never have the total amount of investment at risk. You only have that stage, that gate at risk, right? And then you deliver value, and then you go back and ask for the next amount of money. Once it's in there, we can obviously do better reporting, more detailed reporting. You can put Excel directly on top of it. There's only one table that has all the data in there. You can use this for processing, right? So while we bring these records in, we can use it for reporting. We can also use these transactions for transactions that are in the S4 system. We'll talk about that in a slide or two. And then you can execute these processes either for these local people. They log in now and execute their work in a new S4 system. You might do this centrally, where you say, hey, there's this person ABC who now runs a depreciation run and allocation run for the entire organization. Or for corporate, they do know certain things in one system, not in several systems. And obviously, from a finance transformation perspective, there's much more self-service in an S4 system. So we have users of Oracle, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft log in now to that central system via Excel on top of it, and they don't even know it's SAP. They just say, hey, I can have my Oracle data seamlessly delivered on via Excel. So real cool self-service. Of course, with the central system, we can enable much more shared service execution. Right? That's your business model choice as a customer. Treasury, cash management falls into that as a perfect example of the ability to either take a shared service concept further or introduce it to begin with. And there's a lot of automation capabilities that we have in S4 that were not there in R3 and that are not offered by these legacy system technologies that JD Edwards, Oracle, and PeopleSoft has. So this is the overview. And as I said, it can be stood up iteratively, which means the first phase can be in as little as 3 to 6 months, depending on your scope, really. And then you can build a rollout schedule where you determine, based on what your needs are, how to go about that. So next slide. A quick slide here that illustrates, in that sense, a capability we use by our friends from Magnitude. So this transaction replication is an SAP product that we brought in because we want to be able to bring in the data from these non-SAP systems. So if you think this might be complex, it's not. It takes typically 15 to 20 days to connect a non-SAP system to SAP. They have predefined templates. They know the data models of these non-SAP ERP systems in and out. They've done this for 15, 20 years. They're really good at it. They don't do anything else. So the connection to a non-SAP source system is not a matter of several quarters or numerous months. It's most likely 15 to 20 days because it comes through predefined accelerators. Next slide. Once we have the data in the system, I mentioned already some of these process capabilities. We don't, as Central Finance, don't add any of these processes. These are standard processes that S4 provides, including obviously here, treasury and cash management capabilities. We just enable them. We have to make sure that we bring all the data in that's required. And then once the process is set up, meaning the master data is there, it's configured, you can execute these. The way we look at this is on the left side, it's a lot about reporting and compliance. So this is where we have combined reporting, better reporting, profitability reporting. On the right side, we have a kind of a cluster of capabilities related to the close, the orchestration of the close, group reporting, consolidation, some IFRS reporting, and so on that are possible out of the system. And then in the middle, we have this more like operations and shared service stack, right? You can do credit and collections and dispute management now centrally, right? You can do central payments centrally, right? As consequence, of course, we also have intercompany as an ability, intercompany reconciliation, but also with the payment data in there, cash and liquidity management and treasury, which is what we're going to talk about later on. So these are all capabilities that you can choose to deploy or not. Most of our customers in the end state go for many, if not most. Their rollout schedule depends on their priorities and their needs that they have, but also where they are right now with their systems, right? A customer that is about to look at treasury, for example, centrally, we have several of them. They might say, hey, I mean, central finance and treasury together is a good idea. They might still start with treasury as part of central finance and then do central finance more later. And there's others that start with central finance, but say now that I know I can do maybe treasury as well, we'll say, well, now this all makes sense to me. So every customer is different there. Next slide.
Yeah, 1 second. So Carsten, talk a little bit, one of the things that you and I have talked about in a couple of different areas is IFRS and disclosure reporting.
Oh, yeah.
What's your perspective and what are you seeing customers do in that particular space?
A really interesting question. Thank you for reminding me. What you see on the slide is mainly standard finance capabilities. Finance capabilities in the sense that they are standard S4, right? And if you look at the very left side, it's mainly reporting areas that you can do automatically. In the middle, it's ops, but there's more in finance. And so what we've done, we kind of evolved this central finance system into a platform. We're going more and more into back office, which means, for example, in the case of IFRS reporting, lease accounting, it's I think IFRS 16, you can do today. That requires certain assets that you can have central in the central system and the lease management module, which you can have there. And so in that case, you can enable lease accounting. IFRS 15 revenue accounting, we have the first customers now saying, if I have the central finance function, why not also using them for revenue accounting? Now, that's not a standard connection we have right now. We're working on it, but we have the first customers making it happen already right now. Same thing with disclosure. Once you have all the data in that central system, you can use disclosure management if you want to, right? Or ACR for some electronic and public communication. So while it might have started more as central reporting, then become central accounting, now central finance, it morphs more and more to, hey, I have a central S4 system. What can I do with it? To just say what we can do right now is we have the first customers that activate logistics functionality within that central instance, right? We have one customer that has already migrated logistics for 64 countries into that central system as well and decommissioned them in the source system. So especially around, I think, reporting, the IFRS, the group closing, the disclosure reporting, or in this area of treasury management, bringing things together, we see customers really looking at this, hey, I have this as a platform. What else can I make this use?
Absolutely, yep. And that's, I know we're going to be talking a lot over the next few months about these IFRS and particularly different areas as well as the subscription billing. So look forward to that.
And I think the key part here is, and this is maybe important for the audience too, is typically you all look at these as independent projects, which you kind of still do in that sense, right? But with central finance, what has changed is that you have the technical infrastructure as well as most likely most of the data already there. So let's say you wanted to add a a new functionality, let's say group reporting, right? You don't need a new infrastructure. You have the hardware already. You don't need a new S4 system. You already got it. You don't need to bring the data in. It's already all there. You kind of, and obviously it's not just a push of the button, but you kind of activate the process in group reporting and go for it. And similar for treasury, there's a large overlap with what we already do, right? And then to use this downstream, as we will see for in-house cash management, these kind of things, is an automatic. A large portion of what you would typically have to build an ROI for, an investment case for, is there. You don't have to do it. Those follow-up projects get smaller.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right.
Cool. All right, next slide. So here's just a slide that talks about the central finance outcomes in those different respective areas, right? And as you see, central finance is a central S4 system and has most of these finance capabilities enabled. And obviously, I made some examples in this case on financial close and reporting, FP&A, but you see the second to the right, orange, treasury management. There's a lot of things that we can do. And with the deployment of additional treasury capabilities, even more. And I think especially when you look at the needs of treasury, from a centralization perspective, from a holistic perspective, you want to know all your cash flow streams. Central finance can help a good deal, I think, making that possible for you. All right, next slide.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to point you quickly before I give it back to a SAP Insider report. I mean, it's great if you hear from me. I'm not incented by sales, but I obviously like my product. But there's organizations like SAP Insider that did some research studies here. If you go to the next slide, I just highlighted some quotes in there. What the customer said, those are customer quotes from real SAP customers asked by SAP Insider. Can support activities to consolidate and centralize some of these processes, right? Next one. They feel that this supports their overall business strategy for simplification and integration. That's what we do, right? We simplify with these S4 capabilities compared to R3 or non-SAP, and the integration, we bring that data all together. Yeah, next slide. Most customers believe it allows them to move forward without committing as many resources as a full deployment. So this comes back to your operational readiness and your how quickly can I deploy, right? This does not have to be a 3-year, 100+ people project with no results until you're live. 3 to 6 months for the first wave, and then maybe 3 months after that. You scope it towards these milestones. Absolutely, that's one of the key benefits of central finance. Next one. And this is the last one. You can basically also start to explore S4HANA by just using S4HANA Finance without having to move the entire landscape, right? So you can deploy these capabilities now together, build a better use case for central finance maybe and treasury together without having to move off of any systems initially maybe, and thereby learn more about S4, right? If we all have to move towards S4, and this might be a really good way to kind of, dip your fingers in there, your feet, your toes in there, and then see how it works and learn. And I think this operational readiness on your side, on the COE side, comes with being exposed to the system. These back office capabilities, these centralized capabilities are perfect for that.
Absolutely.
So with that,
there's a quick question on the line here, Karsten. Somebody asked about what about master data governance and the harmonization/rationalization of master data? Do you need MDG or how do you do that?
Yeah, so master data is a very critical aspect of a central finance project. You could just dump it all in and then you would have the same data quality as you have today. You would get less out of it, or you can improve it. What we recommend is to be pragmatic, improve as much as you can in the time frame that's allowed as part of a central finance project. So you get value out of it. You can always improve it later on even more. You don't need master data governance to do that. You should definitely look at a master data governance as a project once you have data loaded to keep it in sync. Now, if it's one change in one account once a year, Mike around the corner can do it. If it's something that is a lot of things, maybe a lot of profit centers get reorganized every quarter, then maybe you should look at automating it. And then maybe SAP Master Data Governance is the right tool. So the process for sure for the governance, once you have it, the tool MDG, for many people they have it and it's good. For some it might not be the right solution. At minimum, you have to have a process. And you can improve master data over time as well in many aspects. So you don't have to do a full 2-year data quality project. You do central finance, and the time that the project gives you, you use for your master data. That's how I look at this.
Yeah, and I think to your point, and I think we talked about this not too long ago, is central finance is a great way for you to take an incremental bites into your master data and the whole process, because you can align with central finance master data and look at that and clean that up and then move throughout the system, right?
Agreed. Yeah. So hopefully this was a good background on central finance itself.
It was.
You should take from here that it's a good way of bringing data together. It's a no risk, non-disruptive way of doing it. It can be done fairly quickly for SAP projects in that sense, and it can be the foundation for example, processes like treasury and cash management to be brought into your organization.
All right.
Thank you
Well,
very
thank you,
much.
Carsten. All right, thank you. So Kim, let's turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Carsten. This was very, very informative. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the interaction of central finance and treasury. I'm going to get into a little bit more depth in some of the areas that we've talked about in some of our other webinars. But treasury is, as we know, is very well connected corporate function in any organization. And as you would expect, treasury does manage all of the financial assets of the company, and they need the full visibility of where their cash is at all times and be able to manage their liquidity and their forecasts. So a key question that treasurers usually ask is like, how is central finance relate towards each other? Firstly, as we've heard today, central finance, central processing actually focuses on the centralization and the standardization of our local finance processes. So if you look at if you think about that, the harmonized information and the model provided by central finance is the perfect platform to really enable our treasury processes, as we've heard from Carsten throughout his presentation today. And one of the areas that I wanted to focus on as example is one of the most important first parts of it is your payments. Payments being your inflows and your outflows, which in some of our other speeches, we've talked about payment factories, where we want to also highlight within payment factories, not that the fact that it just complements our processing by simplifying the integration of all of our source ERPs into the system by hosting that payment factory, but it clears your items that are cleared to the source systems. All your open items are transferred into central finance. Your payments can be executed in the central finance in a standardized way. But also I wanted to highlight that a payment factory implementation will require less effort if the central processing is fully implemented. And then you've got your bank communications, your communication with your bank, and your maintenance of that bank information is now performed centrally within central finance. Your account balance reconciliations, that's also going to be either performed at the source systems or the central finance system, preferably central finance system, if you set it up the way we've talked about today from Carsten. So a couple other areas, I guess we can actually go to the next slide. What I wanted to talk about now is, since I just talked about the payment factory, just as a reminder what a payment factory is. Some folks, they hear the word payment factory, they hear in-house cash, it's really one and the same, but I wanted to make sure it was clear that the payment factory is defined as the central structure that facilitates all our payments outgoing on behalf of or in the name of, and our receivables on behalf of or in the name of. It covers your treasury payments or vendor payments or customer payments, any kind of direct debits or checks. So payment factors really are looking to make it easier for our companies to increase their efficiency and gain their visibility into their cash positions by centralizing information, by streamlining and standardizing our payments straight across the enterprise for all the different payment types and throughout your banks. So with this automation of process, we can really achieve by combining those operational capabilities and those shared services within the organizations with all that financial coordination aggregation capabilities of that in-house bank. So that's pretty much what the payment factory is. We can go into the next slide here. And then the benefits of that, of course, by centralizing and standardizing all these payments, which works beautifully when you're looking at the central finance, is that with the centralization of these processes, it streamlines your effectiveness and your controls over your funds, increases your visibility. You have reduction in your duplication of efforts and reduced costs. You're going to actually be able to enable your better cash management processing. Of course, your risk mitigation, improve control over your master bank data information. And of course, you just rationalize your bank partners as well. So now you're actually being able to go down from more like maybe many banks down to maybe one or just a few. So basically that implementation actually pays for itself in that case.
Hey, Mike Lucente, any thoughts, comments on that, what you're hearing in the marketplace from customers today?
Yeah, no, just one thing around this, because we talk about, shared service center versus, an in-house cash implementation, right? And they really are, very, very similar. But the one difference we see people choosing to go with an in-house cash model if, regulatory and tax compliance, align are the ability to do cashless settlements. And we really see that as as one, I would say driving force to go to the in-house banking model versus the shared service model. So
Mhm.
just wanted to add that in.
Especially with the intercompany payments
Exactly. Yep.
is where I'm seeing most of that. It works really beautifully. It's really quite. I mean, if I didn't have this back in my day, it wasn't something that we had the capabilities of doing, but it really works well. So the next slide that I wanted to touch upon is, as we've talked about, the benefits of the payment factories in-house cash. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is the benefits of the automation as it relates to this. And so when you're talking about the automation of your payment factories, it also supports your global payments and your remittance standards, consolidates your inquiry messaging, reporting controls will be able to, you'll have better management over those. Also keeping in mind, we're talking payment factory. Yes, it is true. You can't always do it in all markets and all countries. Depends on what the rules and regulations are in those countries. But it does also further work to meet your audit and compliance requirements. It really does tighten those controls because now you're processing in a predefined and controlled end-to-end process. You've got your BCM for your role base, so you have your separation duties are enforced. You've got those automated workflow approvals, and you can actually base out on any kind of flexible criteria that you may want. And so now you've got that real-time global access to all that transactional information, your account balances. You're also looking at your interfaces with AP and AR subsystems. I can't even talk today. Subsystems to integrate your outgoing and your inbound funds on a daily basis. And so now, in the end, you're really able to react to all those changing business conditions, and you have that full feature growth to make sure you can integrate any kind of acquisitions, go into any international markets, and react very quickly to the counterparty risk. Especially in today's environment, you really need to be able to make sure that you can meet any kind of risk that's coming your way with the changing marketplace.
Sure. And Mike, yesterday you had some great comments. Maybe you can share some insights. We talked Tuesday rather, about party risk, trapped cash, and in this case, central finance is probably a great way to centralize. You can share your thoughts that you shared on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. So with central finance, so in a centralized treasury platform, you really have the ability to track all of your debt, your investment, and all of your cash balances, receivables, payables, everything like that within one system and apply different counterparty risk matrices to that. And not just from a customer vendor situation or a bank or any other real counterparty financial institution, but really at a higher level when you can look at them at a regional level or even a down to the country level. So for example, with what we're dealing with today with COVID, we see some of these countries have liquidity crunches. We might want to say, okay, what sort of exposure do we have in Italy right now? What are the chances of us getting paid back by one of our vendors in Italy at this point? And this really gives you the opportunity to make that as granular or as high level as you want to be able to see where this liquidity is trapped and be able to see, what are the chances of us actually being able to convert this liquidity into real dollars at some point or when it actually comes due. And the centralized approach really gives you that global visibility and allows you to chop that up and view it the way you'd like to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and maybe you and Kim can also comment. So I was recently talking with somebody about a lot of this, and a place that occurs to me also is as you look at all of these dispersed systems throughout the globe, segregation of duties and internal controls, how you control who can disperse cash and how they can disperse it. This central finance implementation and using Treasury is a great way to get a hold, I think, of your cash. Any thoughts on that?
If you want to go first, Mike, because it's all going to be based on the workflows and so forth and roles.
Well, yeah, well, exactly, and some of the other tools that can be, integrated with central finance and treasury, something like advanced payment management, where you're taking all of your multiple ERP systems that people have and are executing payments from all these disparate systems and funneling them to one system to be batched and then sent to your financial institutions with the appropriate controls put into place, down to whether they're a treasury wire or an AP wire, if you wanted to break it up like that. And from a payment method perspective, there's no different, but maybe there is internally. Maybe we don't want a shared service center approving AP wires, but treasury has to approve all of theirs. Centralizing this gives us that ability to batch these payments and have control down to that batch level.
Exactly. But you also, and I know a lot of treasury folks and also in some of the service areas, they're very lean. And they're like, well, how in the world are we going to keep our compliance and our separation of duties when there's only 3 of us? And you can easily build in those roles and those approval workflows, if you will, to be able to easily manage a very lean team. You can even do dual approvals and so forth. So the flexibility is there, and that really will ensure that you're able to keep that compliance and separation of duties without any kind of issues whatsoever. So that can be handled without issue, because I know that always comes to me. How am I going to do it? We only have 3 of us. And it can. It's easy to do. Okay. So this is, love this slide. So right now, when you're actually, as we've been talking about today, when you're in an environment using several source systems that are not integrated, treasury management really is quite difficult. As we know, as treasury folks, what happens, you get all these systems and you're trying to make heads or tails of pulling it all together. It's very difficult. So now that we understand from Carlston today, and also what Mike has also alluded to us as well, is that with a central finance, the way it works, it's perfect platform for all of our payments and our cash collections. It also facilitates all of our treasury applications with the central implementation of the central finance. So treasury really becomes fully streamlined and manageable once you're in this central finance. And so instead of really installing treasury risk management on top of your source system that may contain conflicting master data, central finance really now offers that possibility to set up that treasury management system on top of a harmonized data set that's updated real time, as Carlston was just saying a few minutes ago. And one of the things I also wanted to highlight here in the picture over to the right here, if you go from the bottom up, from the green up to the back, you've got your optimizing your payments and your bank communications, which we were just talking about with your in-house cash. Now you're able to easily manage your cash and liquidity. You're able to optimize your debt and investment strategies, your foreign exchange, your derivatives, and so forth. And of course, manage your global financial risk. It's all centralized in one place. The treasury is now fully optimized and like a superstar when you bring it all together.
Yeah. Hey, Carsten, maybe you can comment on this from your perspective. You and I spent a fair amount of time, talking about the integration or the benefits from a treasury and central finance. What are you hearing customers? What are you hearing customers saying? Where should they be focused from your perspective? Carsten? We may have lost Carsten. Hang on 1 second, folks. All right, we unfortunately, due to somehow we lost Carsten, so we'll
Yeah,
catch
John,
up with him. But
one
maybe
thing,
Mike, you can comment on that.
Well, I just from the treasury perspective and and what I've seen, one of the biggest things, and people might think, oh, okay, why is that important, is just being able to manage your bank account centrally. So many people do this offline and access databases and things like that, and it's so hard to keep control of signers, people that come into the company and leave the company. And I mean, we've had customers who, when they actually start to sit down, rationalize their bank accounts, look through them, there's signers that are assigned or that are assigned to these accounts that don't even work for the company anymore, because of how there's no real formalized way to track all of these bank accounts. And something as simple as that, and SAP Treasury, gives you that ability to centralize that control and be able to then, going forward, control what subs and who can open up accounts. And there's a proper workflow to be able to do that. And this really facilitates that really basic function that all companies do.
Absolutely. One other thing that we hear a lot, and the reason why, treasurers like to own their system and own control and changes on those systems.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback we always hear from people is, oh my God, it's SAP. And, in SAP, I've got to hire an army of people from IT to do this thing. In S/4HANA, and particularly in central finance, that's not true. And,
Right.
Kim and Mike, maybe you can comment a little bit about, there are many functions in many areas within central finance and treasury that the treasury managers actually can make changes to, of course, within their role, but they can make changes to, and it is a treasury product.
Right, and I can add one piece to that, and then Mike can fill in the piece. But like what Mike was just saying on bank account management about managing your bank account centrally, yeah, with S4, now it's master data. And of course, treasury people, we like to be able to open and close our own bank accounts and manage all that information centrally, not have to go, hey, IT, can you please add this bank account so we can get going on this? And it takes, a while to get that in place because you have to go through all the different approvals. And 3 weeks later, you could have done it yourself in 5 minutes. So, and with the S4, being able to do that centrally yourself as master data makes it so much easier for treasury folks that need to have access and control of their system right away. And Mike, you can go into some of the other areas, I'm sure, and talk about some of the other abilities where S4 has made it much easier for treasury to manage their own systems.
Yeah, I mean, it's made the customer much more flexible in how they can manage their own data in their own system. And I mean, from an implementation perspective, it's cut down the implementation effort as well. You guys know, I mean, the days of 10, 12 people on a treasury project are over. It's just not required anymore. So the whole implementation and the timeline, the work effort behind that has really been simplified to deploy these sorts of things.
Oh yeah, it's much better, especially with a lot of the standardization and the way that the system is set up. It's much easier and quicker than it ever has been in the past. And I think that's one thing that people still are not realizing is how easy it is to do.
Yeah, right. I mean, because I think everybody was so used to how we used to deploy this. I mean, when I was at E5, we would have 10 or 11 people on some of these big projects, which now they could be done with just a handful. So it really has changed and made it much easier to deploy the solution.
And that's what I've been doing. It's a lot better.
So, yeah, there's another question out there, Mike and Kim, around hedging in VAR. Can you, I assume, can you do what you normally do on your daily transactions for hedging and VAR in this system? I assume so, because it's an S/4HANA system.
It's not any different. I mean, you mean from being on central finance versus being, regular S4? Is that what you mean?
That's the question. Yeah.
Yes. So when we centralize when we centralize treasury and risk management, we're going to bring in all of our activity that we would be hedging with. So we were bringing in our interest rate derivatives, our FX derivatives, our commodity derivatives if we have it. We also will have our underlying exposure, so we'll be able to value those against our hedging instrument. So when we have all of those in there, then we can do all the analytics that you're talking about. So if you want to do value at risk, or you want to do cash flow at risk, or you want to do market data shifts, all of that is available within the treasury and risk management module when you have that, whether it's centralized on just an ERP or an S4 system, or as part of an S4 central finance system. Either way, when you have that data centralized, you can do all of your financial modeling, the whole garbage in, garbage out that we all do, and we try to plan and forecast for any sort of market conditions, and that's all done on that centralized location.
Right. So yeah, so again, that could be within your regular S4 or central finance. It's all the same as far as being all centralized once you put that process in place.
And because it's SAP, we can hedge, whether it's foreign exchange, whether it's interest rates, commodities. We can do all of that as we see here, right?
Right. Yeah, we have another slide which I didn't put in here today, which actually shows the whole hub with Treasury in the center. You might have seen it on that presentation that I did yesterday. treasury and risk management, where actually you see all the different pieces that can feed into that from your Bloombergs and your Reuters and so forth. So that's all there.
Yep, and it's not exactly, and it's not just the deal capture and reporting. It is all of your downstream hedge accounting associated with those.
Yep.
That can be all facilitated centrally.
Exactly.
Right, all the mark to market and all of the other reporting that you have to do is all part of that. So
everything.
Absolutely.
So yep, that's the beauty of it.
Yep.
It's a lot easier than it used to be.
It is. So let's wrap this up.
Sure. So yes, with wrapping this up, as we've seen, is that the SAP S4 HANA deployed on a central finance, it really does truly deliver a harmonized information model that really is perfect for applications. And yes, for treasury, we're talking about treasury today, but it's just amazing what it can do with the treasury, the risk management. You got your cash liquidity, and of course, most dear to my heart as well is the payment factory in-house cash and your communications with your banks. It's really, really important that central finance is fully in place, and it's very important to treasury and its operations that now you can actually have all your information in one place. But I will want to say that it is important that when you are setting up central finance, that treasury is involved in that implementation so that you can talk with each other what your data needs are and what your structures are, just to make sure that when you're implementing it, that we are meeting all the data needs for finance and treasury to be able to run their processes.
Absolutely. Mike, any thoughts, comments?
No, I think we covered it. And, I think that we'll talk about how, if there's any follow-ups, so we can, dive deeper into any one of these particular subjects and go from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're gonna wrap up, everybody. I do want to talk about a concept and bring this in here because I think it's important for everybody to know. It's our framework. We call it Comply, Optimize, and Transform. And central finance plays a fantastic role in this journey. The idea is that you start with compliance, or laying the foundation for finance transformation with transactional excellence. In the comply space, what you do is you go ahead and you look at all of your finance your transactional areas. Am I posting the right things to the right GL? Do I have insights and information that regards what I'm doing for cash position? Do I have my banking statements? Are they accurate? Are they correct? Am I getting all of my transactions right? Once you do that, you can begin to move into the more advanced areas, which are building operational excellence through process improvement and automation. How can I look at specific areas? When we take, for example, you begin to centralize your revenue accounting. Let's look at that for a second. You can begin to draw on using SAP, RAR, and COA together. You can begin to look at different areas of your profitability at the individual POB, or performance obligations. So if you are familiar with that space, you can begin to look at specific elements of your market basket and understand profitability in a real-time basis and begin to optimize your mix. The same here is true of your treasury. You can begin to look at your banking fees, your compensating balances and everything, and begin to optimize where you have your cash, how you use your cash. But that has to start with foundations like a central finance treasury program. Once you get to that, you can move into this concept that we've talked about, which is transformation. This is driving innovation and agility to survive the future through organizational excellence. It's really taking what you've done from a process optimization and driving further transformation into that. Think of being able to do what Mike talked about. If you could do different modelings around your market exposures, your tax, if you understood what was going on from different tax regimens as we begin to look at how the governments are responding to COVID-19, if you were able to model this and understand where your cash is trapped, begin to manage that through an in-house banking or cash pooling and payment factory, and then move to transformatives that say, now I'm able to predict and model different simulations and do scenario analysis to proact against some of these events that are going on. That's the idea of optimize, and transform. Looking at some of these areas, we look at treasury and central finance, how you can leverage treasury, central finance, leasing, and other areas in the future. So look for more videos and more webinars from us. As I mentioned, we have a number of ebooks and blogs coming out in the near future on different subjects like this. We are partnering closely with Mike and the SAP team on some low-hanging fruit opportunities for you as customers to really gain benefit near term from such things, optimizing your cash position to improve ROI and reduce the cost of compensating balances and fees. We'll start looking at different areas for you to improve your leasing structures and free up cash flow. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Hopefully you got a lot out of this. I know I learned a lot, as I always do, from Karsten, Mike, and Kim. Kim, as always, a great job with the slides, and Mike, your insights are fantastic. So I want to thank everybody. I do want to note, remember that Bramisol is the leaders in business transformation, finance compliance, and finance transformation. But I want to make a note, everybody, please stay safe, please stay healthy. We look forward to having you on our next webinars, and have a terrific day.